The people that pull ahead the fastest are not the smartest. They do a handful of very unsexy things exceptionally well. Most people don't end up unlucky. They end up exactly where their habits are taking them. If you don't actively design your life, it degrades by default. Most people just simply won't do that, which is why it works. I am Dan Thompson. I'm a chartered wealth manager and multi-business founder. And today we're going to talk about how to get ahead of 99% of people in less than 6 months. After 15 years of working with high performers, business owners, directors, C-suite corporates, and people who have a serious amount of money, I've noticed something very interesting. The people that pull ahead the fastest are not the smartest. They're not the loudest. They're not the most flashy. They do a handful of very unsexy things exceptionally well. And they stop doing a lot of things that everyone else just keeps doing. And this isn't theory. This is pattern recognition. One of the biggest advantages I've had in my career is I've had close proximity to people who are exceptionally wealthy or highly successful, because I've watched hundreds of people over long periods of time, and what they say they want and what their behavior actually produces can be two very different things. And most people don't end up unlucky. What happens is they end up exactly where their habits are taking them. Poor energy, low optionality, quiet frustration. And the problem is they never stop long enough to notice the patterns, to notice what is happening. Instead, they stay busy, they stay distracted, they stay reactive. And the people who pull ahead do something most people avoid. They pause, they take notice of their habits, and they take stock. Clarity starts with what you refuse to accept in your life. So in my experience, clarity really starts with inspiration. It starts with disappointment almost. The most decisive moments I've ever had or I've seen in others have come from realizing that if I keep doing this, I know exactly where my life will be in the next 5 years. And I don't want that. Not vague goals, not vision boards, but almost like clear refusals of what you don't want. So I don't want my time completely owned by other people. I don't want my health deteriorating quietly in the background. I don't want my income dependent on one fragile income stream. I don't want my decisions dictated by short-term pressures. And once you're clear on what you won't tolerate in your life, your direction sharpens quickly. And here's the truth that most people underestimate. Entropy is why most people's lives drift. If you don't actively design your life, it degrades by default. Health slips, finances stagnate, the same with your business, your career. Relationships can weaken over time. And I've seen this with people earning huge amounts of money who are highly successful, just as much as I've seen this with people who are earning very little. And entropy doesn't care how smart you are. The people who understand this early understand that you don't rely on motivation alone. You build structure, processes, systems around your ideal life. You design your life with intention. And the real shift is in systems, not intensity. And one mistake I made early on in my career, in my life, was I was thinking effort was the solution to everything. Work harder, push more, grind. I brought into that hustle culture mentality, and that does work to a extent, and briefly. But what actually changed everything for me was when I designed how I operated, how I functioned. Fixed training times, deep work, protected in the mornings, clear rules around my availability, fewer decisions per day, not heroic sprints, but sustainable structure instead. And this allowed me to be more consistent over years, and that's what wins a race. So the next one is a big one, and I talk about it quite a lot, managing energy, because you can't move forward with energy leakage. Because every year I see people and they say they want to progress, but they're feeding every distraction imaginable. And I've got too many inputs, too many people, and too much noise. And the people who pull ahead don't necessarily add more. They actually remove aggressively. They stop endless scrolling, draining relationships, saying yes to everything. And this isn't forever, but for long enough that they can regain momentum, because energy is finite, but direction is what matters. Boring execution is the real separator of the people I know that are the most successful. From the outside, high performers look boring, same routine, same priorities, same fundamentals, and they're often saying the same thing in terms of their advice. Hormoz is a great example of this, in terms of his approach, his work ethic. But the repetition compounds. I see it constantly in wealth building. Simple strategies applied consistently outperform clever ones time and time again. And life is no different. It really is that simple. And I can never get this through to enough people. The people who pull ahead aren't chasing breakthroughs. They're just stacking days correctly. They're doing the right things every single day. Those successes, those small wins every day compound massively over decades. And I've seen this play out 100 times before, right? The gap between those who drift and those who don't, those who pull ahead, isn't talent. It's just awareness. It's structure, systems, it's processes, it's lifestyle design, and the willingness to live differently for a certain period of time. And most people just simply won't do that, which is why it works.